Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the CDL podcast channel. In this episode today, we're going to be going kind of a new format. We're going to start out doing what we normally do, kind of talking about any big news that happened during the week, and then we're going to get into kind of some match recap. A little different than we normally do power rankings, have a new segment where we rank our top 5 players going into the major. But the reason the format's a little different this week is because we have another co-host. If you guys have been listening for a while, you've probably seen in the comments, Kyle's been commenting for a while, having discussions on Twitter and stuff. And I kind of reached out to him. We talked about potentially being co-hosts on the podcast. It's been a long time coming. We've probably been talking about it for like a few months now, but it's finally set up, and we'll see how it goes. It might be choppy this first time because both of us aren't the best with technology. And it was hard enough to try to even figure out how to record a dual podcast on Discord for us. But here we are. If you're listening to this, that means we at least somewhat got it figured out, I hope. But yeah, we're going to try out a new format. If you have any suggestions for the format and stuff as we go along, that'd be great in the comments. But we're just going to wing it. For this week, we kind of have a bunch of notes. And I'll just kick it over to Kyle to kind of introduce himself.
Hey, Ryan. My name's Kyle. Glad to be here this week. Yeah, a little brief history on how I kind of, got into watching your videos, and my in with the CDL in general was, I guess it was last season with Modern Warfare. I was just scrolling YouTube one day and saw that there was a live stream for the CDL London event, which is, as Optic fans will remember, is the one that they won on LAN. And yeah, it was just so I watched it for a few hours, and I thought it was pretty cool. I'd been playing Call of Duty since way back when in middle school with COD 4 and all of the old school ones, but never had really gotten into competitive until last year. So really tried to pick up the mantle and kind of learn all I could in the short time. So I was listening to a lot of different podcasts, Best of 3, Hard Points, Codcast, and I would run my podcast feed dry every week after listening to those, and eventually I stumbled upon your podcast with like 20 views, and I clicked on it and listened. It was just another thing that I could consume about CDL, and I saw that you were responding to people in the comments, and I was like, wow, I can actually have a conversation with somebody about competitive COD. And because you can't really have a discussion with Maven or Merc about competitive. It's more like them just talking at you. Not that that's a bad format, but just to kind of have a back and forth discourse was something so new. And obviously your knowledge of the competitive scene is pretty vast, and you kind of go back to day one with like Black Ops 2 and stuff. So it's always nice to be able to pick your brain and just talk about whatever's going on in the CDL world. So yeah, I'll kick it back over to you. So, but yeah, that's about my history with competitive.
Yeah. Honestly, when I first reached out to Kyle to just even think about doing like a dual podcast, it was just like I felt like there's only a certain cap that you can really hit, if that makes sense, with a solo podcast, like just talking by yourself pretty much. Because at some point, like that's the one thing I noticed. Like I like to listen to Best of 3 a lot too, and Hard Points when they were still doing it, and even the podcast. And like to me, that was always the one thing that I thought was missing from taking this podcast to the next level, was like a back and forth, because that's where the really good and interesting discussions come out. And obviously, as one person, there's some things that I'm going to miss and not think about, and having a second person on that maybe we'll think of something from a different point of view that I don't, especially somebody like Kyle that's a newer viewer to the CDL, and maybe sees things differently, because I might have preconceived notions of players because I've been watching them for 10 years, and like him being a newer viewer, like if one of the older players is playing really bad, I might be too stubborn to say they're playing bad because I want to see the older players last. And you might just be like, yeah, this guy's playing bad, because you don't have as much like long-term history with like some of the players that I grew up watching that I might have a bias towards or something. But overall, I think it's going to be pretty good. It's going to allow us to get into more actual real discussions. So I hope you guys enjoy it. We're kind of trying a new format this week. I'd say me and Kyle kind of brainstormed it. And I think we're just going to go probably from now on with this format unless we find something that works better. So I think first we're going to kick it into just some news. And this news is kind of over the last week. So some of it might be a little bit of older news. Like that's probably been talked about for the last week or so, but it's pretty big news considering it involves Scump and Clay, two of the biggest personalities in the league. But I guess our first piece of news we want to talk about was Clayster obviously announcing his break. He's taking a break from competing this past weekend, and we don't really know how long it's going. I guess the first thing I want to talk about is, do you think he's retiring? I don't know. I kind of have my thoughts on it, but I'll let you go first, Kyle.
Initial thoughts on Clay, whether he's retiring or not, I'm gonna say no. And reasoning being is that it seems so unceremonious of a way for a player like Clay to go out, a guy that's been around since, Black Ops 2, and he had he's been on the Dynasty, like the Dynasty team that a lot of people reference, back in Black Ops 2, and for him to go out, online in a semi-online league right now that we've kind of transitioned to, and for him to kind of just bow out, and he's had this whole throw me to the wolves, I'll come back leading the pack, and it seems like and he's a back, and people forget he's a back-to-back ring winner, and
also for him to just like leave midseason is one thing, but to leave like a month before champs, I just don't think there's any way he leaves a month before champs when he has a chance. So like his team isn't playing well right now, but like they're a team that if they would hit form, they could have potential to make a run.
Yeah, and it kind of makes me think we kind of started to see this trend with New York right when ASIM couldn't get into the States for the major, and they were super high off of taking Faze all the way to a game 9, or no, sorry, they'd beaten them in a best of 5, and then they had gotten to the final, and then they kind of lost in heartbreaking fashion there. And then ASIM can't get to the States, and then so they have to put they have to they have to bring in the substitute, and they just couldn't bring it back after that. And even when ASIM gets to the States, then it's like their vibes are chalked, and I don't know, just and then Clay's just like, okay, I'm kind of done. I'm not gonna set a return date, so I don't know, just kind of weird.
I also think it's weird, like you mentioned, like on Twitter, he was like on a plane or something, so he's not just like taking just like a break and chilling at his place, his apartment or house. I'm not sure where he's at, but he's actually like on a real vacation, and it's kind of weird because like to me, if he's on a vacation, unless he's coming back like today, like Sunday or Monday, like he's not playing at the stage 5 major, because the way they initially made it sound was he's taking a break for the weekend and just like to reset. But now if he's on vacation, let's say he doesn't come back to like Tuesday or something, well, the major starts on like Thursday or Friday or whatever. So like that's not enough time to really practice and get back with the team. So maybe he's not playing at the stage 5 major. I guess for now it seems like he's not playing at the next major. And I guess I would assume he's playing at champs. It'd be really odd if he didn't. But I guess, what do you think the odds are he's back for champs? I think the stage 5 major thing is probably sailed.
Yeah, I would agree with that. For champs, I'm split right down the middle, to be honest. And yeah, that's where it kind of gets dicey, because if they had started playing well with DiamondCon coming in, then it would be like, does Clay really want to come back into that, and kind of like, because he kind of took DiamondCon off of his AM team, and that was one of the more hyped up AM squads, if I'm not mistaken.
Team Canada.
Yeah, and so then if Clay comes back and he's like, okay, Diamond, you're done. I want to play with Mac, ASIM, and Hydra again. It's like, well, maybe that's kind of a D-bag move for less.
That's the other thing I was thinking too when I first heard the news and that Diamond was coming back, because I know Team Canada, I can't remember who was all on it. I believe it's like Royalty and Exotic in them, I'm pretty sure. So like a lot of like people that have been like successful in the pro league before and have had like top 8 placings when there was 32 teams at tournaments, like they're successful like history in the CDL and in the CWL for those players. So to me, like if Diamond Khan knew that he was only going to play this weekend, he may have, like, unless he's like forced to because he's under contract by New York, that might be a whole different situation. He might like have to if they want to call him up pretty much. But like to me, he must know some information, obviously, that we don't. I'm sure he does, that maybe there's a potential he might play at champs, because if I were him and I was only playing this weekend, there's really nothing you can do to raise your stock. Like people saw you enough in the CDL. Like for me, if I know I'm only playing this weekend, I would have said, no, I'm going to stick with my team, because like his team, from what I've heard, has a legitimate chance to potentially like win challengers champs. Like they're probably a top 5 team. So like,
Right.
I don't know. To me, it's weird that he would leave them unless he thinks he has a chance to play at champs. I hope he doesn't. Not that I don't want to see him play at champs, but I don't want to see Clay go out like this. I mean, Clay is legitimately, after winning that last ring, in the conversation for GOAT. Like he's up there.
Oh, for sure.
Like that
And
top 3, top 4. Like I don't want to see him just go out on a random mid-season retirement. Like that's not the way he should go out. He should go out either winning a ring or like battling out at champs, or just like because he just isn't at that level anymore. Like we know Clay can still be like one of the top players in the league. We saw it this
and
year.
yeah, I mean, and if there was, you know, I think we've kind of seen the frustrations with Clay. Maybe behind the scenes, there's a lot more coaching
Mm-hmm.
and stuff that he's had to do with the newer players. But like just in the video, when it cuts to their face cams, it just looks like he's always like, even if they're winning, he's like he's always talking, and and if they lose, it's just like, hand on the head, the hat comes
Mm-hmm.
off. He's yelling. And it must be really frustrating for him to, uh, you know, coming off of back-to-back majors, or sorry, back-to-back world championships, and he has to find a new team and do all
Yep.
this stuff. And you know, we can't, dismiss the fact that he is like 30 years old.
Oldest player in the league.
I know, and uh, you know, props to him. He still plays like he's 18, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean, at that point, you might be thinking like you have adult responsibilities. It's not like you're
Yep.
this kid playing in a,
That can play 12 hours a day.
yeah. I mean, you're not in the scuff house,
Yep.
with Hector and everybody. I mean, not that he ever was, but like
Yeah.
you have adult responsibilities. He has a girl in his life too. It's just, a lot of stuff is kind of coming to a head with Clay.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'll say the last thing too that like I didn't really think of before we kind of picked up this topic, but the last thing before we move on, I want to say is, I guess when you look at like, yeah, he's had a lot of young players over the last couple of years that he's kind of had to like mold, even since like when he was traded from Faze, he was with Enable and Attach and Zuma, and then he got traded for Gunless for IW champs, and he went over to E United. And like he had Pristini and Arcitys, who were young players, but they had already won an event by the time, and he had Silly on the team, which, whatever you want to say about Silly being a good or bad player, he's a veteran, so he had somebody to help him teach. And then he goes into Black Ops 4, and at the start of the year, he has Simp, and well, I guess he doesn't have Simp to start the year, but he has Abezy, who at the time was like basically brand new. And he still had like Pristini and them, and then eventually he gets Simp. But on the roster, he has Arcitys and Pristini to kind of go with Simp and Abezy and kind of like guide them and help them. So he had like helpers. Then you go to Dallas and you get, I mean, Illy and Shotzi, brand new players to the league, but he has Krim to help him. So like, I feel like at every step of the way, he's had another like all-time great vet or good vet that knows how to win, like help him mold the young players. And he gets here and he has Asim, who's like, I mean, he's kind of a vet, but still a young player, kind of learning how to play the game like to his fullest potential. So like, I don't know, that might be playing a factor too, just like not having that extra support like he's had in the past.
yeah, for sure. I think that pretty much covers that topic. I mean,
Yeah,
just like we honestly, I think we both hope that Clay is back in some
definitely.
kind of capacity for, if not for more seasons, at least for a proper send off.
Definitely, at least playing at champs this year, and like I'm sure he'll always be around the CDL, whether it's
Oh, for
coaching
sure.
or he's got a great personality. He could definitely be on the desk or something, and obviously he knows what he's talking about. God, um, I also think
Hmm.
like it'd be so bad to lose somebody like him, because like I don't know, in terms of intangibles and being a leader, he might be the best one out there just to like lead a team. He might be the best. I mean, there's really no way that us as like fans or people that watch CDL can ever know because you'd have to be inside of team conversations and like learn how people work. But like from the outside looking in, he seems like one of, if not the best leader. Um, I mean, I don't know how you could even argue that he's not one of the best with how many teams and different teams he's led to championships. But I think that does it for the Clay topic.
Yeah, for sure.
I think the next one we want to talk about, now that we kind of were on a sad note and talking about Clay's career potentially ending, is online COD. Hopefully it's officially over. It seems like it's at least over for this year because the Stage 5 major's on LAN and then Champs is on LAN. So I guess now that online COD's officially over, what do you think this means for the CDL's future? Will we ever be back online again? I mean, I know we saw Joanna Ferry's kind of like hint. I don't know if it was necessarily her or CDL Intel like hearing something that like they potentially said that the CDL might look to be doing certain things online, like maybe regular season, like they did this year, because it's a money saver. But I guess I have some thoughts on it. We'll hear yours first.
Well, first of all, I want to say that I'm very happy that online COD is over for the year. Aside from technical glitches, stay tuned,
Yeah.
and just the incessant advertisements.
Yep.
Uh,
Yep.
it seems like every time I flip on the stream, we're in a Hearthstone commercial,
Yep.
or something, and yeah, you can only watch this so many times, and I feel like the flow of a LAN is just a lot better. You have the guys like the next match is ready to go.
Yep.
After the after the other one ends, we don't have to wait to get to the post match interview with Lottie. I don't know, just like I think you know I do kind of lean that we probably haven't seen the end of online going forward, but hopefully we're back to more lands next year. And I think we could do honestly an entire podcast on what format we'd like to see going
Yeah.
forward. But I'm really hopeful and really uh just praying to every god I know that we don't have to deal with a majority online going
Yeah.
forward.
Yeah, I think for me, I mean, obviously I hope that we're done with online everything as it comes to regular season matches, tournaments, whatever. Um, I don't necessarily know that we are, but to me it doesn't make a lot of sense. They're saying like, oh, it's a money saver. But it feels like when they started the league, the way they planned to make money was off selling tickets and selling drinks and food and stuff at the event and merchandise at the event. Like that's the way they plan to make money. So I don't know. It seems like a dumb business plan to have events online where the only way you can get revenue is like off ad revenue from the streams, because you're still going to have, regardless of if there's a LAN and people going there, like only a couple thousand people can go, like there's still going to be thousands watching online and giving you your ad revenue. And then those people, I bet you're getting more revenue off somebody buying a ticket and buying some food and merch at the event than you are off of their one view on the stream on YouTube. But like also like for somebody like, especially for somebody like you who's like really gotten into COD and Modern Warfare, you probably haven't seen a lot of events where there's fans, right? And like heard the crowd as much besides like the
Well,
first couple in MW.
yeah, well, I'll tell you the main reason or one of the main reasons I really enjoyed the viewing experience on YouTube or just on stream was because of the instant reactions,
Mm-hmm.
and right when the final point right when the team's 250 on hard point, you get to see everyone jump up and go crazy and kind of like pump the
Yep.
crowd up. Something that comes back to me was you know as much as we like to bash on Modern Warfare, there was I believe it was a semifinal match for a homestand, and we had uh Dallas versus Rocker, and it was a Hackney hardpoint,
Yep.
and it was like 247, and Miles, or sorry, not Miles, Merc and Maven were casting it, and Maven was just going bananas
Mm-hmm.
with the call, and I was like, wow, this is like, I can't believe I'm watching this right now. Like, this is like better than like any other sporting event I've seen recently, because this is like, I don't know, just
Yep.
I don't know. We need the fan experience. We need the loud stadium. I think
100%.
I think the players feed off of it. Like, we've seen so many, like Octane comes to mind when he's just like, we need land back. We need land back. Like,
I
Scump is like, we need land back. Like,
I think too, like the crowd is like so important too because like it's cool when you're watching the broadcast, like when like somebody picks up a big like a big two piece or like a huge clutch and search, like you hear the crowd go nuts like through the casters. It's just something cool. Like I guess like I've been to 2 events. I went to the Black Ops 4 champs and then the opening CDL, like the Minnesota like kickoff for last year in Modern Warfare. And like the one that always sticks out to me is like obviously most of the moments where the crowd gets the loudest are for Optic because I mean Optic has the most fans. And like the one that always sticks out to me, like whenever I just randomly like see compilations of like top plays and or like people react to them and like on Seaside Hardpoint, I don't know if you've ever seen the clip, but where Dashy's hiding basically in a corner on the P4 on that map. Actually, no, P3 on that map. And then like people just funnel through the door in the mid alley, and Dashy gets a 5-piece, like with one clip of his Maddox. And
Yeah,
like,
I've seen that one.
And I was at Black Ops 4 champs that year, and like just the way the crowd went absolutely insane because obviously like a majority of the people there are cheering for Optic, and they're playing like E6 or somebody like that at the time, like somebody with not a lot of fans. So pretty much everybody in the building is cheering for Optic, and like the way everybody just goes crazy and just like to hear a crowd go crazy like that, it's just like when you're at a sporting event. Like even if Optic isn't your team, it's just like crazy to think that if you love the CDL, you love COD, like people are going that crazy for it. Because like
Well, I mean,
I don't know, it's just awesome to hear like when there's just like a huge play and like you hear the casters get hyped, like it's cool and they're doing a great job, but like it's just different when you hear that roar of the crowd.
yeah, and I mean, yeah, just to echo that, like I think we're not giving the casters enough credit
Yeah.
for literally like sitting in their bedroom
Yes.
and trying to
Yep.
call it over the screen. I think like by far and away this season, Miles the Ross has been
Yep.
like if there was like an Emmy or a Grammy we could give to him or like an Oscar, I don't know,
Hey, they got the esports awards.
yeah, I mean he deserves like he better get the super max is all I'm saying
Yep.
for a caster,
100%.
but and you know, but we just need everyone back in the building, um, especially next season, and
Well,
I
and they
think
weren't
that
even like I felt bad for the casters. They didn't even get to go to the stage 4 major when it was on LAN. They were like the people
mhm.
that had to stay behind. Like that's why I'm
I,
assuming with fans in the building, they'll be in the building for the stage
I
5 major.
I actually think I heard that they're still going to be remote, but
There's no way. I really hope that's not true. I didn't hear
I,
anything about that, but I'm just gonna act
I'm
like I didn't hear it because I'm gonna be pissed if that's true.
yeah, but I mean I mean like we both agree that we need majority LAN,
Definitely.
and I mean, but like I said, I could definitely see a world where we have some kind of online component, but uh, I don't know if I'd like to see it count for points the same way that a LAN does, but that would be a discussion for another day.
Yeah. But I think we cover that pretty well actually. I mean, in general, we just both kind of think there's a chance that online COD comes back at some point, but I pray to God it doesn't. Um, but the next one we want to cover, it's going to be controversial for all you Optic fans out there. We want to talk about Scump a little bit. I know, I mean, obviously this past weekend, Scump had probably one of the better weekends we've seen him. That LA Thieves match and those like first couple respawns, he was frying. Like he looked pretty good overall. But in the past week on, I believe it was the Optic podcast or pre-show, one of the two, he talked about wanting to see the next game being World War II Vanguard, see like a trailer, maybe play a little bit of gameplay or like see gameplay. Um, to see what his future for the CDL looks like. Like he was talking like, man, if this next game sucks and I don't enjoy it, there's a chance he seemed to be hinting at retirement. So I guess like, what do you think the future of the CDL looks like? Should Scump say, hey, Cold War is my last game, I'm not playing Vanguard? Like, what do you think the future of the CDL looks like without him?
Oh man, it's scary to think about a world with from a strictly competitive standpoint where Scump isn't competing.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely think that league higher ups will be talking with Hector about like
Yep.
you need to keep Seth close. We need him like if he's they can't control if he's going to retire or not, but
Yeah.
you can't just let him fly away to the wind and like
Nope.
be
He's got to be at every
streaming
event,
like
and
I mean like he
yeah,
can't be streaming Minecraft when there's a CDL match going on. Like if he was
yeah.
to just retire, I mean, because we all know that he could easily you know get like 20-30,000 concurrent subs on
Oh
Twitch,
yeah,
and
he
probably
could ratio the COD stream.
oh yeah, for sure. So they're definitely going to be like we need to get him like on a contract for to be a personality, like maybe the same
Oh
way
yeah.
that like Zuma's doing the flank, we get Scump doing something.
I
Um,
actually like Scump's personality could be so big that I think if he would have left Call of Duty when Fortnite was blowing up, he could be like Nick Mercs right now. Like
oh, for sure.
there's a
I've heard
legitimate chance he could be Nick Mercs level.
so many people say that, and
Yeah.
just based on the you know, if he was able to dedicate like 110% of his attention to like his stream, because like back when Optic was streaming scrims, they do a scrim and then he's reading out the subs and thanking
Hmm.
donors and stuff, and it's just like he's getting pulled in a million different directions.
Yep.
And at Optic, the content is definitely taking priority
For
over,
sure.
um I don't want to say over competing, but like,
No, but it's higher than
but
anybody else.
and yeah, I mean, and I think for those that like really listen to what Hector says about like his view on content, will understand that he doesn't just think that competing is secondary. It's just like he realizes that the brand is the most important thing, and like,
Yep.
so yeah.
I think too, like something that scares me about it is like for me as like I just love competitive Call of Duty. So like if Scump leaves, like that's gonna suck because part of the fun is like everybody loves them so much. It's kind of fun to watch them compete and like they have so much pressure, I feel like, compared to most teams because they do have the most fans and like people I mean, regardless of whether it's warranted or not, like people are harsh on them when they lose. Um like even their own fans are very harsh on them and like it's just something that like I feel like there are a lot of people that just watch the CDL for like Optic and Scump. Like there's a reason that the viewership is way higher when Optic's playing and like a lot of that is because it's Optic, but a lot of that is also simply because Scump, like I wonder how many viewers he could just pull away like when he starts playing like I'm assuming he's gonna do something like play Warzone or like a battle royale or like shooters or even Minecraft or whatever he wants to play. Like he seems to like a lot of like RPG games, role play games. So, like he might play those on stream and stuff. And like people are about to
Dude,
become fans of other stuff.
Scump's gonna be up at 4 a.m. playing Tarkov
I could
with
see
all
that
those
too.
guys.
With
I mean,
Damon and them.
yeah, he's gonna be with Karma at
I'm just yeah. I'm
three in
scared
the
he's
three
just
in the
gonna pull
morning with
viewership away.
Shroud.
Yeah.
No,
He's
but
gonna pull viewership like bad.
and part of the whole like Optic thing that you had mentioned earlier was like, I've kind of started to when I first got into watching this stuff, and Optic might lose, and then Twitter's just blowing up with Scump needs to retire, like drop Scump. And like for a new viewer like me, it was like, did he really like he went, let's just say he went 22 and 22. It's like, does he really like suck? Like I
Dude,
need to learn,
and
I need to learn how to analytically watch these games.
the worst thing about like people like this that are like saying he needs to retire, he needs to retire. First of all, they don't know what they're wishing for because like I don't care. Like even if you just hate Optic, you hate Scump, like, you're like a Faze fan or something. Like you think Simp and Abezy are like the best players of all time, which whatever, have your opinion, but like I don't think they understand that like whoever your favorite team is, like Scump is the reason that we're here. Him, Nade Shot, all these guys that like got all the viewership there. Like if he leaves, like your team might not exist because the CDL might not exist. Like at some point they might just die out because they don't have the viewers. Like he carries like the weight of the league on his shoulders in terms of viewership. And I think like there's so many players that don't get it. Like Octane gets it. He, like on that podcast on the Eavesdrop he did recently with like Hecz, he gets it. He's like, like I'm not ever going to be as big as Scump because there's probably never going to be another player like in popularity unless the CL just blows up in crazy like popularity. It's probably never going to be anybody as popular as Scump ever again. The only guy was Nate Shot, but like I feel like not enough people are making content. Like Simp has started to make content now, and like there's guys like Enable who make content and kind of like pump it back into the CDL, and like Octane's probably like the biggest YouTuber. Kenny started to make content. Like there's people that are making it, but like there are so many pros like out there with such big names that could be making so much more content. Like Pristini is a super popular player. Like outside of the Optic, like Pristini, Arcitys, Clay are like the big three that are like so popular. And like he doesn't make any content. And, like he's got a great personality. Like players, like that's my general take is players. Even if the way we survive without Scump is if players all build their personalities and have fans that like watch just specifically for them, like people do for Scump. Like because if Scump retires, does Formal go with him? Then we're just in shambles.
Right. And as far as like what we talked about earlier with like, he wants to see the game, and he's not going to make a decision until he sees an alpha. Like, I don't know how true that is. Like, I feel I don't know. I mean,
I mean, like he
I
said,
feel if Scump goes, Formal goes, but I don't
and,
know.
and like he said though, like he's played how many Call of Duties like World War II that he hated. He just loves competing, and like I get that as like a guy who's won 20 something events. He's a world champion. Like he has nothing left to prove at this point. Like he's done everything. He's been at the top of everything. Like I feel like for him, like at some point, like he honestly like he's even said some stuff like this. Like he doesn't really care how good the game is. He just loves like the competitive aspect and like grinding with the team and trying to win. And like that's never gonna go away. Even when he retires, that's never gonna go away. It's just like I hope he doesn't retire because the CDL is in such a weird situation. Like I want him to stay through at least expansion. So like when the league is like up to 20 teams, hopefully, and hopefully 2 or 3 years or something, like he can kind of help the viewership carry through then. And then like it's almost like he needs to just carry us on his back until we get to the point that we're like big enough and have enough teams to like go kind of like where the Overwatch League is at. Like they maybe aren't the most successful, but they have over 20 teams, and like a couple of like my best friends are like huge Overwatch League fans. So I know a little bit about it, but not a ton. But the way I want to wrap up this Scump conversation, just really quick, how many more years do you think he's gonna play?
I'm gonna give him 2 more titles.
So you think that's
I
including
I
Vanguard and whatever comes
I
after it?
I think yeah. I don't know. I mean, I think Vanguard and then maybe one more.
Yeah. I think that's probably the best and safest guess is Vanguard and one more. I really don't think he's going to retire after this year, and maybe that's just me hoping he doesn't. Um, but just to be different, I'll say he plays 3 more years, Vanguard and 2 after that, because I think for his mindset, he's always been a Treyarch guy, and Treyarch is his
I knew you were gonna
developer,
say
and
that.
he plays the best on Treyarch. And I think he goes next year, gives Sledgehammer a chance. I think he probably doesn't like the game because, from what I'm hearing, the game's probably not going to be that great. I hope that's wrong, but then if he struggles enough, that this is my thing, he either retires in that next game because it's probably going to be like a Modern Warfare Part 2 pretty much. So if he struggles enough through that game to make it through, I don't think there's any way he goes out on that game unless his team like wins champs and wins a bunch of events and they're like the best team or something. I don't think there's a way he struggles all the way through Modern Warfare without ending on like giving a Treyarch game one more chance. So I feel like he maybe has 3. Hopefully it's more than that. Hopefully he plays the Clay length, but we'll see. All right. Next thing we want to talk about here, we got the CDL officially released, the MVP candidates. I believe it's going to be like last year, where like Nameless and all the analyst people involved in the league get to vote on who it is. But they officially released the candidates. We got 3 Faze members: Simp, Abezy, and Cellium. They probably could have thrown Arcitys in there if they wanted to, and nobody would have complained. And then Shotzi and Cammy from Dallas and Toronto. So to kick it off, I can start this time. We want to
Please
talk about
do.
like who do we think takes it home. I think we both agreed when talking about how we wanted to do this segment. Um, we both, I mean, at least for me, I'm not sure about Kyle, but I think that who I think is going to take it home is different than who I think deserves it. Um, I personally think that Simp is going to win it. I feel like there's a general consensus since Black Ops 4, and rightfully so, that he's the best player in the game because, I mean, truthfully, from Black Ops 4 to Modern Warfare this year, probably overall, he has been the best player in the game. I mean, you can make arguments for people like Abezy and like Shotzi over the last couple of years, but like nobody's going to say like you're flat out wrong if you say Sim's the best player in the world over the last how many years, basically since he entered the league. And he probably has the best overall KD on the year, and like stats wise, probably has the best. He makes the flashiest plays, so I feel like he is going to win it. But I think Abezy deserves it. I say it all the time. I still think Abezy's the best player in the world. I think his role is harder. Now, I mean, at this point, you're just picking between MVPs. Like they both deserve it. So like, I'm not saying like Simp sucks and he doesn't deserve it because like, I mean, I think we all know he probably deserves it and is going to win it. But like for me, I would give it to Abezy because I think he plays the harder role. I think he opens up the map for Simp a little more to do what he does. But you can't go wrong. Honestly, I really don't think you can go wrong with any of them. Like, I think Shotzi is in last place for me. I think I'd put Cammy. I think I'd put Abezy 1, Simp 2, Cammy 3, Cellium 4, and then Shotzi 5. Just because Dallas has been so up and down that I feel like it's hard to say Shotzi's been consistent enough, where I think the other 4 players have been pretty much the best player on their team the whole year, because I think Faze is everybody's even pretty much. But that's what I'd say. I'd say I think Simp's going to win it, but I'd give it to Abezy.
Yeah, I'm very inclined to agree with you on Simp and Abezy there. I don't know.
But
I just wish we could get like, I just wish I could watch like Simp's POV only,
hmm
because I feel like it was brought up that, he just doesn't make mistakes.
nope.
And he's a sub and he's leading the league in KD.
Yep.
And you would normally think that that would be an AR's.
Arcitys.
Yeah, or some like Octane last year was like leading, or
Yep.
like he was up there and his team sucked. But I don't know, just every time that you watch him, it's like he doesn't, like it's not always he's making like three pieces or solo breaking a hill, but he's always making the right play. And that's where I kind of like lead in with like Abezy does the dirty work, but he
Yeah.
the thing with Abezy is he stays alive sometimes and he makes it like he's the first blood machine. Like
Oh yeah.
Abezy can go hit Eskies on Moscow, 11 straight rounds, and he'll blood everybody. But I don't know, just I would,
That's
I've been thinking that Abezy's, like, the value that Abezy provides for the team is that would tip him over the edge for me,
well,
but I definitely think that Sim's gonna win it.
and I would think that also like something you mentioned about like he can hit Eskies 10 times in a game and get 10 first. I think that's part of the most important part of the value he provides. Like every year they like show the first blood, um, like the amount of first bloods people got in search, and it's like, okay, we know Abezy's number one by like 60. Who's second? Like we know Abezy's number one. Like I feel like it's underrated how hard it actually is to get a first blood in search and get that many more than like everyone else. Like it's not like he's just like that much better gun skill than everyone else. I mean, he's one of the top gun skill players in the league, but these are all pros. Like the difference in their gun skill isn't like that insane. Obviously, Abezy and Simp are probably the top 1% within the top 1% of gun skill, but like it's not like they're 10 times better at gun skill than any other sub in the league. Like they're somewhat close. Like he's making these insane plays and he knows the routes to take and he knows his timings and like he just has incredible smarts. I feel like he is the more impactful player, which is why I give him MVP. But like, yeah, Simp is the flashier, the name that people think is the better player. He's the general consensus better player, I feel like. And also, by the way, they also have Cellium, probably the
They
third best
do.
player in their team, and he's probably maybe third in like MVP voting. Like, he
Well,
is a legitimate case for it too. Like, it's absurd.
well, listen, you win three majors, you get three players in the MVP voting. That's
Yeah.
just that's the rule.
And if they would have beat Toronto, maybe Arcitys isn't there.
Yeah, I know. Damn Toronto, they snubbed Arcitys. So I guess that could lead us into. Do you think there's any snubs with the MVPs?
So
Like
the
any
one
names come to
name,
mind?
I mean, there's two names that the community has been basically saying. I think that's Dashy and Insight are like the two people. To me, I don't think Dashy's a snub because like I could see where maybe you say like you take Cellium out since you like it's hard to have 3 out of 4 players on one team, but like I think Cellium deserves to be in there, so it's tough. But like it's really weird to have 75% of a team in the MVP discussion when there's only 5 total people in there. So like I could see a world where maybe you replace Cellium with Dashy, but I think Cellium has a better case for MVP. So like it's tough. My only argument for that is just the fact that it's hard to have 3 players from one team. And Dashy's had a good year, but like also like Dashy had a stretch where people were saying like, does he deserve to get benched too? Like people were talking about him getting benched for a while there. Like he struggled. And then Insight, I mean, obviously he comes in. Toronto goes from a middle of the pack team to winning an event. So like he definitely has a case there. But like Cammy's been there the whole year and been the best player. So I see the argument there. Like to me, they're kind of snubs, but neither of them would be like in the top 2. So I don't know.
Yeah, I definitely would agree. I mean, and there's only 48 players in the league, so
Yeah.
and you can probably cancel out like a good 70% of them off the rip, just based on their team performance and positioning in the standings. Um, because I mean, you can't start throwing guys like Octane and Standy in there. I mean, those are kind of just like bottom. I mean, they're great players in their own right, but they're not really MVP caliber for
No.
this title. So
I do
yeah,
I do have one more actually too that I wanted to add in there that I kind of forgot about. I think New York, I mean, obviously right now we know New York is probably at the worst point they've been all year, but like New York for a long time we were arguing are they the second best team? Because for a while there Dallas was not a top 3 team. Um And New York was that team that it was like, we know Faze is one, but Ultra and New York, like they're kind of that 2 and 3 team. So like I feel like a guy like Clay or Asim has to be like thrown in there as a potential like guy that should have been in there instead of like a Shotzi, because New York has been good. Like apart from last week, New York is overall the better team this year than Dallas, like for a lot of the year. So like I feel like there's a way you could say Asim with the crazy year he's had, or Clay like leading the team and having great stats too. There's like a way you could say that they maybe should have been in there instead of like Shotzi or somebody like that.
Yeah, I mean, in a different world, I might have, I would have maybe capped it at one player per team, and then
For
then
sure.
you could maybe have an Asim or a Clayster in there.
Yeah, like the top 5 teams each get a
and
player or something.
yeah, and that would probably open the doors for guys like Dashy and uh,
Yeah, I
you know,
guess.
maybe like a Skies or Awakening as as the number 5 guy or something. But
I mean, yeah,
like
the top 5 is Faze, Empire, Ultra, Subliners, and Chicago in terms of points. So who would it be? It probably Simp.
mhm,
Simp, Shotzi, Cammy. Probably they'd say Asim and then Dashy. In that case, Simp would definitely win.
mhm. Yeah,
But
but
yeah,
I mean, with how dominant FaZe has been, and we were, and there's all this talk about FaZe wants to build they Arcitys wants to be a dynasty. Like
yeah,
he's not just thinking we're gonna play for a year and then blow it up and kind of like reshuffle the deck. He kind of wants to be like you know this four of Arcitys, Simp, Abezy, and Cell is gonna be like the next complexity or
and
something.
they definitely
Like
could be.
yeah, well, I mean, but it's kind of hard when two of their three major wins have come online, and it's kind of just like are we really counting those as chips? And I don't
Yeah,
know. That's another debate, but I definitely think that the three guys up there are deserving
yeah,
of at least the
yeah.
nod to be voted for MVP.
I think we both just are in the same boat. Like all 3 of them definitely deserve to be up there, but maybe you could say the only reason they don't is because 3 out of 4 players on one team is tough. And I mean, I think in general we have the same consensus too. Simp's gonna win, but we kind of both think Abezy could win. But I mean, there's no problem with Simp winning. Like he's definitely a deserving player. Um,
Hmm.
Then I guess next one is a little bit of rookie of the year discussion we want to talk about. I don't think, to our knowledge, at least, it hasn't been officially announced, like who's in the running for rookie of the year. But we brainstormed like probably who we think is like the top 4 candidates if they had a 4, or top 5, I guess. If you want to throw 5 in there, just like the MVP, and we thought it'd probably be like Insight, Hydra, Neptune, Paul X, and Standy. Like other guys that would have been in the mix. We may have forgotten somebody, but like a couple of the names we thought would be like Venom, Diamond, Afro, but like those 3 all kind of have the same issue. Venom was pretty good in the time he played, but limited time playing. Diamond, same thing, was overall like a pretty good player, but only played the first couple stages. And then Afro, same thing. Has been really good, especially this past weekend. He impressed me a lot, but I mean, he's only been playing for the last like month or so. So like it's tough to put a guy like that in there. But I guess between those 5, Insight, Hydra, Neptune, Paul, and Standy, do you have like an order you'd put them in for your rookie of the year?
Um, for me, number one's got to be Insight. I think
Yeah, I agree.
the he came in so early too. Like I know. Rest in peace, Methods. No, he didn't die. He just got benched.
Yeah.
Zinni is still alive and well. Um, but yeah, the turnaround for Toronto is very stark. So I would definitely put him number one, and they won a major. And then number two, I would put an A and B, with
Okay.
A being Hydra and B being Standy.
Really?
Um, I
I differ
yeah,
there.
I I think that New York hit some higher highs than Rocker did, and part of that is probably like in my reasoning for putting Standy so high, like 2B, would definitely be because I bought into the Standy hype.
Mhm.
Right when he came in, I was like, oh my gosh, this is a young cracked player.
Yep.
Like maybe they found the next you know I don't want to say the next Simp or Abezy, but maybe they found the next Simp or Abezy. Like
Yeah.
like I mean, he was frying like in his first match, or like and then they beat Optic, and I was like, wow,
Mhm.
this guy's the real deal. And
To me,
you know
I was
and
gonna say to me, Standy is like he's a lot like an Envoy to me. Hits the pinch a lot. He's super like high skill ceiling, but maybe not like the highest in the league. But like he's definitely up there. He hits the pinch a lot. He takes routes. He's like a route man. He's a lot like an Envoy. That's like what he's going to turn into.
Mm-hmm. And then just to round it out, I would probably put Neptune at the 3 and then Paul at the 4. I think Paul kind of gets overshadowed just because he's on the Royal Ravens, and they're not
Yeah.
they're not really that they're not a good team.
I think he has a
Just
bright future though. He's a pretty good player.
he does, and he was he was on that the original Wester team
Mm-hmm.
that was they were so good at the early stages, and then it's like these guys are turning down CDL contracts because they want to stick it
Yeah,
out, and
absurd.
then all of a sudden Paul's going, and then the whole team is chalked. So I think I would like to see Paul get on a more stable team, and
Yep.
he might have to wait until expansion, unfortunately, because with only 48 guys in the league, I think there's always going to be like a stark contrast in the tiers of teams. And I don't think there's going to be many openings at the higher tiers for him to get in. But yeah, I would definitely want to see what Paul does in the next few years.
Yeah. I would say I actually differ a little bit on my rankings. I think for sure I agree Insight has got to be number one. I mean, of the players on the list, he's the only one that has an event win, which is a big deal. I mean, for Rookie of the Year, I don't feel like it as much as like an MVP, but like when he's like arguably the best player on that championship team, then it starts to matter, I think. I would have Insight 1. I actually differ. I think if you would have asked me 2 weeks ago, I would have had Hydra 2, but I actually think I have Neptune at 2 right now, based on how well he's played recently. And overall, like this year, like even when he wasn't playing the best, he was still around a 0.95 and like playing decently well. He was just making some boneheaded mistakes that you'd expect out of a guy that just switched over from Halo to COD, and he's kind of seems to be learning recently. And I think he's gonna fry at the major, and he's been frying. Honestly, he's been arguably their best player at this stage. I mean, their whole year, their best player's been Big Wake pretty much, but I think Neptune's been improving a lot. I think I'd actually throw him at 2. And he's played the whole year, which I think is something that really matters. Like Hydra came in what, stage 3 or 4, and Neptune's been playing literally since the start of the year, which I think matters a lot, like time played. And then I think I'd go Hydra 3 and Standy 4 and Paul 5. Because I don't know, I feel like Hydra of these 5 players, I think may have the best career because I think he might be the most talented. But he's had a little bit of a downfall over the last few. And that could be due to Clay being out, and there's a lot of things going on with New York, Asim missing time and all that. But then I go Standy at 4 because, like, yeah, he came in super hot, but since those first few weeks and like since the accuracy 3-piece on Optic, like Minnesota just hasn't been that impressive. And Standy's been good, but like up and down, I don't know, just not enough body of work for me. And then Paul's 5 because like he's been very good, but had no team success. I think an honorable mention, like of the 3 guys we mentioned, though, Venom, Diamond, and Afro. I think Afro deserves a shout out. I'm really, really high on Afro, probably higher than most people. I think if he would have played the whole year, we'd be talking about him maybe above like Paul and Standy, and like in that like 3 range of being like one of the top players. But once again, probably team success would have held him back.
Yeah, I totally agree. I definitely think also from those other 3, Diamond deserves a mention too. Just
Yeah.
back when Hydra finally got over to the States, and it seemed like the big debate was like, okay, like New York is pretty good, like, but do we make a move and put Hydra in? And Diamond was the one that ended up having to bite the bullet. Everybody knew. I think it was pretty split between Mac and Diamond that were gonna take the hit.
Yeah, and originally wasn't it actually supposed to be Mac? I thought they like originally benched Mac first and then
Yeah,
changed their mind.
I think Mac got like a 20-hour benching, and then he
Yeah.
came back. But yeah, I mean, so I mean, Diamond's been, all over. So, and early on, I think people were pretty high on him too when he was starting. So,
Yeah. All right. Last topic we had for the news section. This one can be pretty quick because we almost kind of touched on it, talking about Scump and stuff. But like this past week, Scraps hinted that he wasn't going to play in the Paris match, and he hinted at like a potential retirement to play Warzone or stream full time. And I guess, do you think this is scary for the future of the CDL? I mean, like I said, we could go over this quick because it's kind of something we touched on with the whole Scump thing. I guess for me, I think it's definitely something to be concerned about because, like, you don't know, grass is greener, whatever. Like, these players have a huge competitive desire. That's why they're where they are. But like, there's players we know like Scump and even like Scraps. Like, we've seen it with Blast this year be super successful in streaming. And guys like Tommy and Rated, like, they're two of the top Warzone players for tournaments and they're making so much money. Like, it's kind of a scary thing that, like, there is a legitimate option that, like, I mean, we know all these players are top level Call of Duty players. Like, if they go to Warzone, they're going to be at the top of the tournaments. Just give them a month and they'll be up there. They may not be winning everything, but they'll be in the top 10. Um, and I think it's scary to me that all these players know that the alternative's there. So if things aren't going their way, like Scraps, he's been on a bad team. I mean, last year's team was okay, but this year's team sucks. And it's like, I mean, do I want to just keep sucking and being so frustrated, or do I just want to go make a bunch of money and like still be able to like maybe scratch that competitive itch with Warzone? So, I mean, in general, I think to me it's pretty scary that this alternative exists and is so surefire as long as people are willing to put in the time.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'll kind of keep it short on this because I'm a big Warzone fan myself. I played it a lot last summer, kind of tailed off towards the winter. I was getting burnt out. I think I had like maybe I had too many days to count played,
Yeah,
but yeah, I mean, if you look at the how what the winnings are, I mean, like you have Aiden just based off of prize pools. He's the number one guy, and he's made over $250,000 just in
yeah,
prize winnings. And it's like,
insane.
and you know, and the thing with Warzone is too is like you can you just log on whenever you want and play and fire up the stream, and you can make money off of the game, and you can make money off of the stream. So
Battle royales were literally made for streaming. Like, there's not a more perfect game. There's like enough action going on that you keep people entertained. There's also enough lulls when you're like looting and picking up weapons to talk to your chat. Like, they're literally a match made in heaven for streams. I
yeah,
mean,
and I mean, like, and then you think about like, let's just say like like we saw Wuskin go over to Warzone and more of like streaming. Like, what if like what if Scump and Formal go to play Warzone and it's
yep,
like, okay, wow, let's go play with Tim the Tatman and Nick Merckx today. We'll run
blow it up.
quads
Yep.
on Warzone. It's like, that would it's just, I don't know. There's a lot of exposure there. There's a lot of prizes. It seems like the tournaments are becoming more and more frequent.
Well, and there's a lot
Um,
of guys like Scraps has a great charismatic personality. Like, he's gonna kill it if he just stream.
oh, for sure, yeah. So I don't know. I think that there's a right answer out there for how they can bridge the gap between Warzone
Mhm.
and the CDL. And I think that eventually they'll find it, but it might take a few people that are kind of treading water right now, going over to Warzone, uh, to
Yep.
kind of spur that. So yeah, that's about all I have to say on that.
Okay. Then the next thing we wanted to go into was kind of like a match recap. I know, like, in the typical podcast that I do, like solo, it's like a lot of going over each match. We kind of want to do something different this week, just kind of like talking about quick talking points, sound bites, basically from um, kind of the weekend instead of going in depth. Maybe talk about a couple matches that were the best in depth, but like Paris versus London, like those teams are both out of champs. Like, there's not a lot uh, to talk about there. So we're kind of going to just go into like a couple little like different segments about the matches. And just see how that goes. Because, I mean, basically all this is new to both of us. The first one I want to get into though was like a segment that we're just gonna call like who won the week. So like it can be literally anything. It can be a player, a team, a caster, anybody like us. I don't know. It could be anybody that you think of that involves something with a match on who won the week. So like the way I tend to go is like teams because that's the way my brain works. The first thing I think of is this happened, so this benefited this team. You want to go first in this, or do you want me to?
You go ahead, go first. Who
Okay.
won the week in your eyes?
I think for me, Dallas won the week. The whole team of Dallas. I mean, first they take out Ultra 3-1, which is kind of an ongoing debate. Like, Ultra has been the better team for a majority of the year. Dallas beats them this week in a 3-1 fashion. Kind of like overall, like they handled them pretty well. Like, it wasn't like a super close series. Which to me, first of all, they win because that almost cements them as a team right now that we have to put ahead of Toronto. Based on just Dallas taking second at the last major, they're going 4-1 in the stage. They get the first seed in their group. Um, that was a high pressure match. I mean, they were both 4-0. Winner gets a first round bye in the major. Like, at the time, Dallas was 5 points behind them for second place in the overall standings, which is a huge deal because if you're in the top two, you get a first round bye at champs. I mean, that extra round bye is a huge deal. It also allows them to avoid Faze for a lot longer if they have the 2 seed, which, I mean, everybody wants to avoid Faze as long as you can. So now they're 5 points ahead of Ultra. So as long as they just finish ahead of Ultra at the major, boom, they're the second seed. Unless like something crazy happens and Optic makes a run and wins it. But that also gives them the inside track to secure that 2 seed, like I said, get a bye. So overall, just like beating Toronto, cementing themselves as maybe the second best team in the league right now, with New York falling as well. Securing a first round bye here at the major and potentially a champs. I think overall, there's no way that Dallas has anything negative to say about them from this week.
Yeah, funny because we didn't share who our winning the week was, and my initial thought was Empire as well. So yeah, I'm gonna just say that just kind of to differ a little bit, that I'm really impressed with how Vivid has integrated himself into the team.
100%.
I think if we were to get he's very, I don't know, he's just flying under the radar. I feel like, Empire doesn't have a lot of vocal fans on
No.
social media, and like in the same way that a Scump or somebody would be getting all this praise on the social media or whatever, on Twitter, on the timeline. I feel like Vivid really deserves like a pat on the back, if nothing else. Like,
Yeah, especially like he looked a little shaky when they first came in. Like people were questioning if it was the right move, and now I mean everybody knows it was the right move because they look great.
right. Well, I mean, and we only saw him on, a pitiful Gorillas team, and it's like,
Mm-hmm.
we saw very brief flashes of what he could do, and people were like, "Oh, Vivid got dropped because look at the mini map," and it's like, well, maybe put him on a team with like a guy like Crim6, who like he commands the team the way he wants to, but like working with him and Rambo Ray, it's like I think Vivid really is starting to tap into a new potential. So I'll say that Empire won the week, but I'll give Vivid an attaboy there for that.
All right.
So
Yeah, and that's like a note because this is a segment that we both like the idea of, so I think we're going to continue to do it each week, and that's like a note to say is like we're going to do each week. We're not going to tell each other for this and the next segment we're about to do. We're not going to say who we're picking to kind of be like a more reaction and like a surprise, and also like I feel like Dallas was such an obvious pick this week that like we both picked it. But the next one we're gonna do is like kind of on the opposite train, like a down bad moment of the week. Like who had just like a horrible week, like a same thing, player, team. This one's weird for like caster because there's really not gonna be a situation where you're like, wow, this caster sucked. Because I mean, I don't see a situation that would happen. This is more like player or team, or situation. Like what was the bad moment of the week? I don't think you're gonna have the same one as me, but you might. So you go first this time.
okay, as much as it pains me to say this week, because I had really been you know I'd been kind of getting, this guy had been trending in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
But I think my guy Colt Havoc is down
Hey.
bad this week. Um, their only match this week, they got 0-3'd by the Rocker. Havoc dropped a .58, only
Yikes.
2,500 damage. And especially in the in the comms and in the post match, face cams and stuff, it looked like he had kind of been like the glue hype man guy that was kind of like,
Yeah.
come on guys, we can do this. Like, even though they're a 5-6 seed team, he's kind of, I think he was kind of the one trying to bring the vibes back, and bring the team chemistry back, and he was down bad this week.
All right. I actually don't mind that one. I wasn't thinking player as much this week. I had a team in mind, and it's going to be a weird. I actually said my down bad moment of the week is Paris Legion. And that might sound weird
Oh,
because Paris, I mean, they're out of the playoffs. Obviously, we know they can't make the champs. But the reason I thought that I wanted to say Paris was down bad because like their match against London happened before the Optic Thieves match, which I mean, we would have expected Optic to beat Thieves. I think it's safe to say, like going before the match, Optic being hot, like the assumption was that Optic was going to probably win. I mean, and obviously they get a 2-0 lead, and it looks like they're going to. But if Paris would have beat London and then Optic would have closed out versus Thieves, Paris would have been in winner's bracket. for Major 5. They would have been the 3 seed behind Optic and Faze, and they would have had a chance to play who would they have played? They would have been 3rd seed, so they would have played the 2nd seed over in the other bracket, which is Ultra. I mean, unlikely they beat Ultra, but it would have been one last little hurrah for Paris to make a run, maybe finally win some cash since they haven't been able to win any. And I mean, obviously they wouldn't have gotten winners bracket anyways because Optic loses. But I mean, Optic was up 2-0. There's a realistic world where Optic could have closed that out. So like for me, I think Paris is a weird team to have be the down bad team, but I thought it'd be something different. I didn't think there's any way you choose them, but like I just see them as a down bad team because you know what? They had a chance to be in winners and maybe make a run to, even if it was 6th place, win a little cash is like something sweet before they get done for the year. But now in the losers bracket, and they're probably not going to win anything.
Yeah, I mean, there was a time last year where I was kind of, in the Modern Warfare season where I was kind of like, oh, Paris, like, they got all these like weird players like Kismet and Luca and Shox, and it's like, then they dumped them all and they didn't sign a team for a while. I think the whole org is just down bad. And then it's like, oh, they're only going to pay the guys 50K, like the minimum, and it's, I
And
don't
they
know.
have arguably the most talented player we've seen come around in years be a French player, and they don't sign him in Hydra. There's just, they're a mess. That seemed like the easiest signing of all time.
It
The
seems
dude is
like
from France. He's one of the most talented players. How do you not sign him?
right. Well, I mean, they could have even signed an all French team. Like I don't like Brezzy and Whalers.
Yep.
Like I don't know. Those are 2 guys that you hear quite a bit about.
They're very good in Black Ops 4, yeah.
I don't know.
All right. The last thing we have for the weekend before we maybe touch on like just like a couple matches, 2 big matches. I kind of want to go through this stuff somewhat quick because we also have a big segment here at the end with top 5 players. But I guess, who do you have on the hot seat? Players or teams, or anybody? I mean, for me, real quickly, I have the LAG roster, the entire thing. They've got to be on the hot seat. We've been saying it all year. They've been together since they won champs, pretty much. I mean, minus Hecz, obviously, but they've basically been together. Since winning World War II champs, and they literally haven't done anything. They've been towards the bottom of the league in BO4, bottom of the league last year, bottom of the league again. The only player I'll give a somewhat pass on the current starting roster is Mental because, I mean, I don't know too much about Gears of War esports, but from everything I've heard, he's basically the GOAT or one of the GOATs of that. And anytime a GOAT of their esport has transferred over, or a really good player like a Shotzi, a Formal, a Krim, a Neptune, even Frosty, they've all seemed to pan out to be at least good players. Even if they're not the best, they're good. So, like, I feel like Mental could be a good player, so I'm kind of giving him a pass. But like, I mean, he couldn't have been thrown into a worse situation. But overall, like all those veteran players on the LAG roster, like they're on the hot seat to have a spot in the CDL next year.
Oh, for sure. I'm gonna go a little bit different. So my hot seat is a guy that we've wanted to see in the league for 2 years now, and everyone was like, why isn't this guy playing? What's going on? And it's like, who can we pick up? And everybody's first name was John. And I feel like he has kind of underwhelmed, and given all of the roster moves that Los Angeles Thieves has made this year, it feels like they're sticking with John, and we all know that they've got Ook and TJ Haley on the bench, and what's to stop them from making one more roster move? Because we know teams are allowed to continue to make changes if players are rostered. So
Yeah.
and I don't know. I mean, I feel like we would see a good clip of John in the AM scene, and it's like, how is this guy not playing on a pro team? And then all of a sudden he gets picked up, and it seems like he's been put in a good position. He's got a great org with Nade shot 100 Thieves behind him, and I don't know, he's just not lived up to the hype that I would have expected. So
Yeah.
I mean, it's not scalding hot, the seat, but it's getting warm.
No. I see where you're coming from. Only thing I'll say about John is my favorite game of all time, Black Ops 3. That dude was so different at champs and the stage 2 playoffs. They won back-to-back events to end the year, and he won COD Champs MVP. And watching a player be that good, and that's probably arguably Scump's best game, and Scump was so good. And watching him just bully everyone at champs, him and Apathy, like they were the 2 best players at champs. If I've ever seen a guy in that form, I know they can always get back to it. That's the only thing I'll say about John. I agree. He definitely is on the hot seat, but Black Ops 3 John at champs is one of the best players I've ever seen. So I know he can somehow, if he can get close to that form, he's a top sub because that was ridiculous what I watched him do that whole tournament.
For sure.
But I guess the next thing we were gonna do, we were gonna talk about like maybe a little bit more in depth the OG 100T and the Mutineers Rocker, probably the two best and most important matches of the week. But I think I kind of want to maybe gloss over that and go to power rankings in our little thing because we've been going pretty long. So I mean,
Let's go ahead and do that.
yeah, everybody watched the matches of the week. They know what happened. If it was a different week where there wasn't so much news, we'd maybe dive into matches more. But I mean, you all watch the matches, you know what happened. We're all just ready for the major. We're done with regular season matches. But next thing we want to do is power rankings. I think we'll just maybe go down the list, start at the bottom. I feel like the bottom four we can just gloss over because they're not in champs. We don't really care. But I guess start out with your number 12. I'm assuming we have the same team, but maybe not.
My number 12 team is the Los Angeles Guerrillas. And like
Yep.
you said, it's time to, crap or get off the pot with this trio that's been sticking around since World War II.
Yep, I agree. LAG 12. I have the same sentiment. Not much else to say there. Then at 11, I'm assuming we probably have the same team again too. I have the Surge at 11.
Okay, I've got Paris.
Really? Okay.
I do.
Only reason I have Surge down there is because they've looked so bad recently, and Paris has shown somewhat life. But I mean, whatever whatever way you switch them around, there's really no wrong way to do it down here.
Mm-hmm.
I have Paris at 10. I'm assuming you have Seattle at 10 then.
I've got Ravens at 10.
Really? You have Seattle all the way up at 9?
I'm kind of riding. So I guess I'll just go tell you my 9 is Surge. I'm kind of riding, Lantane and Gunless on LAN and Pristini. I don't know. Just I'm feeling like they are gonna, they're actually gonna try. And we saw them win 2 matches at the last major, and
everyone to a game 5.
Yeah, they did. And I don't know. I'm high on especially they start hearing the fans. They're gonna have limited amount of fans at this major. I don't know. I'm a little bit more high on Surge, and maybe because Octane is one of my favorite players, but personality players. So yeah,
they definitely have a chance. Of those bottom 4, they probably have the best chance to make a run at the majors, especially where they are, because like Paris, Surge, and London are all in that bottom section to play each other. But I'll be honest, I didn't put as much thought into this bottom because I was like, God, these teams all suck. And then
right.
At 9, I have Ravens. Not that it matters, but this is where it really starts to matter. The 1 through 8, the playoff teams. Where do we think they're headed? So who do you have at 8?
I have the Florida Mutineers.
Okay, that's interesting.
And that's coincidentally where they sit in the overall point standings as well. They have a even 200. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe just because they got 3-0'd this weekend, I'm a little bit more low on them. But
so you're gonna be interested because I'm not gonna say Mutineers for a couple more numbers. I have Subliners at 8 right now.
Okay.
I mean, they went 1-4 in this stage. It doesn't seem like Clay is going to be back for the major, which I think everybody would agree makes them a worse team, not having Clay. Not that Diamondcon's a bad player, but I mean, Clay brings so much intangibles to the team. I have New York at 8 just because of how bad. It's more of a recency thing, and I'm not usually a recency type person, but New York is just so bad right now that I think I have to have them at 8. But we said before this, that 5 through 8 is where you could have like everybody all mixed up. So we thought we might be a lot different. I thought we'd be the same through the bottom 4, all over the place. Who do you have at 7?
I have the Subliners, and for all the same reasons you do. We just, Clay going out of the team seems to just like, if there could be any more wind out of their sails, there would be.
Yeah. I have 7. At 7, I have Minnesota. I feel like they're like that team that they have all the players that you think could make them a top 4 team, but every time they're about to maybe get there, they just have a bad loss. So, I mean, right now, I think they're like a 7 ranked team that has a chance to find a top 4 finish at the major at champs, but they're just too inconsistent. Then at 6, I have LA Thieves.
That's exactly where I have them too. So what's your reasoning for Thieves?
I mean, it pains me because Slasher and Kenny are like 2 of my probably favorite players, but they're just same thing as Minnesota. Like they start out this stage 2-0. They look like, okay, this Thieves roster, like John inserted, they're 2-0. They're looking really good. And then they lose to Paris. And then they lose. I can't remember who else they lost to that week, but Faze. Oh, they lost to Faze, which I mean, that one's understandable. It's Faze. But they played them actually tight too, because that was like they lost by like 2 points in a map 4 that would have forced a map 5. So like even after losing to Paris, I was like, okay, bad week. They lost to Paris, and then they play Faze tight. I'm like, okay. And then they honestly got smoked by Optic in those first 2 maps and found a way to clutch up, but, like, it's just too inconsistent for me. Like, I feel like they have top 4 potential, but sometimes they play like a 10th ranked team. Like, they're just inconsistency is my thing.
Yep. I would just echo all that. I think they have all the pieces there, I feel like, and it's like, okay, is Kenny gonna run the sub? Is he gonna run the flex?
Yeah.
Is he gonna run the main AR? It's like, how many? At what point do you just be like, Kenny, you're too valuable for us to
Yep.
keep switching you positions? I mean, he might be, he might be that good where he can just flip flop every week, but it's like, I would like to see him, dedicated run one thing, and then, I feel like that would be so good for Draza too, to just like run one thing.
Oh, yeah.
And we all know Slasher is going to be the main slow AR, or I guess he plays a little bit faster clip, but
Yeah.
he can turn it up, and then obviously John will be your SMG.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know. I just don't see them any higher than 6 for me right now.
I think we probably know who we each have at 5 then. I'm assuming we have the same teams in the top 4, so I'm assuming Minnesota is your 5 and Mutineers is my 5.
Minnesota is my 5.
Yeah.
Again, I think they have the pieces there. I feel like you were very excited when they benched accuracy. You had some very strong opinions on that player. Even though
Yeah,
he three-pieced Optic.
he did.
But yeah, I ride very high on Standy, as you know, and I ride very high on Priesta, even though he hasn't really shown his true potential since like Black Ops 4. Because I feel like last year he was overshadowed on that Faze team,
Definitely
and
so much
then
talent.
this year he's just been kind of struggling with roles and like pacing, I feel like. But I feel like they can. I don't know. This is probably the highest I've been on them since Standy first came in, so that's saying
Okay.
something.
Yeah, I think they're definitely trending up. And the thing about accuracy too, I actually really hope he's back in the league next year because I like the slasher accuracy style is like my favorite style of leadership, like the no nonsense. Like I'm the general of the team, but he just wasn't playing that well this year. But for me, Florida's at 5 because yeah, they are kind of they get 3-0 by Minnesota this week, so I guess I could have Minnesota above them, but there's just something about the way Neptune's been playing lately, and I know that like Skies and Big Way can turn it on. So like if we see what we saw in that Dallas series where Havoc can turn it on, I feel like this team can beat anyone if Big Wake is playing like we know he can, and Skies is playing like we know he can, and Neptune continues to play the way he is just all comes down to can Havoc turn it on, which the fact that you're saying if to all the players is the reason they're at 5, 6, or 7 and not in the top 4. But I feel like of the ceilings between Thieves and Rocker, to me, if everybody hits their stride, it's Thieves and Mutineers that are the 2 best teams between Thieves, Mutineers, and Rocker, which is why I had them 5, 6. But it's just a cluster that you could put them wherever you want.
All right, so now we're into the top 4. So I'll so who you got?
I have Optic at 4.
Okay.
I think
Any reasoning?
if they would have taken out Thieves in like a 3-0 fashion, like it seemed like they were going to, I probably would have had them ahead of Ultra and dropped Ultra down, or maybe dropped Empire down. But I don't know, just they seemed so strong and like they had turned a corner, and then they allow Thieves to reverse sweep them. And Thieves aren't a bad team by any means, but like it seemed like they had turned the corner to being a top 3 team finally, and then they kind of showed us that old Optic, that inconsistency. So like I'm ready to put them in the top 3, but like the top 4 are so strong that like I think you can put Optic 4 and justify it. And I guess that little inconsistency that they showed me is why I did it.
Yeah, I'm gonna ride with Ultra at 4.
Okay.
I feel like since Major 2 when they won it, I feel like they've just been kind of, just listing. Like they've been kind of just like whatever, like they haven't really improved or they really haven't gotten terrible. It's just been
No.
they've kind of just held pace, and I feel like they've allowed some teams to catch up with them. And I mean, we saw it this week with Dallas taking them out 3-1 and to close out the week.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't know. I just don't have that much faith in them going to all land now as I do with the other teams that are ahead of them.
Yeah. Not as much experience as the other teams. That makes sense. It feels like, to me, it feels like they're like a shoe in for top 4, but you just don't have confidence against them like for the other teams. That's why I have them at 3. I'm assuming you have Optic at 3 unless you went Optic 2.
I went Empire 3.
Did you? I was
I
thinking that
did.
we were gonna both have Optic 4, but
Okay,
I
okay.
mean, I have Ultra at 3. To me, Ultra's been 2 like all year pretty much since Insight, and they won that event. But like Dallas beats them again. They beat them at the major. I can see a world where Ultra takes second at this major still. Like they find a way to beat who do they play in that match? Thieves, and then beat Optic and find themselves in winners finals. I think that's a real possibility. But I got to put Empire ahead of them at 2 because I mean, over the last couple weeks, Empire's been the better team. They've been arguably the second best team in the league. They took second at the major, and now they have a first round bye. So I can see where you put Optic there though, because they do get the first round bye as well. And I mean, they were one decent control round away from 3-0 Faze and 3-0 Thieves and being 5-0.
Yeah, so I'll just briefly touch on why I have Empire at 3. And I think mostly it's because we haven't seen Illy. I feel like he was one of the most hyped up players coming into this season, and he's kind of underwhelmed greatly. And I don't know, just when push comes to shove, I feel like Empire might be more likely to fold. I feel like
Yeah.
as much as like this is the classic Optic arc where they start out pretty good and then they tail off mid-season, and it feels like now they're ramping up. And I just feel like I'm a little bit more prone to buy Optic stock right now, especially based on their stage 5 like group performance.
Yeah. And then I mean, I feel like we don't have to have a discussion about number 1. If you don't have Faze at number 1, you're crazy. I mean, they're the best team in the game. They've been the best team in the game. Like, there's not much of a discussion to have there.
Right, and I mean their only loss this stage came in game 5 round 11. So
Yeah, like they could very easily be undefeated and be the 1 seed.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's not much to say for them. All right, we did power rankings, so we wanted to do one last segment here, and this one might be somewhat of a long segment because there's a lot to talk about. I don't know if we didn't know. I mean, this is our first time doing this, so we didn't know how long each segment was. But the last thing we wanted to do is kind of our top 5 players at each position, and like specifically, disclaimer: this is the important part about this. It's heading into stage 5, so basically, it's all about recency bias and current form because, like, obviously, a guy like Clay, if it was top 5 over the course of the year, Clay would be in the top 5. But Clay's basically like disqualified from this because he's currently not playing. So like, he's a hard guy to rank since who knows if he's going to play the rest of the year. But like, that's the big disclaimer on this. It's like current form and where you have players heading into the major. So like Clay is disqualified, and like we're not looking at overall body of work, or basically like all recency bias right here. So I guess I think I want to start with ARs, kind of go from like the AR to the flex to the sub, kind of like go down the list of the line of how I think of a team. Maybe go from 5 down. I didn't put honorable mentions for either AR or flex because I feel like there's less options. With sub, there's so many options. You want to start with your 5 AR first?
For sure. Yep. Number 5, I'm gonna put Samuel Octane LaRue.
Okay.
And I feel like this is more just like after 4, I'm not really sure. So I'll just give it to somebody that's not gonna be at champs, and I don't know, a consensus top AR the last however many years. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like Lantane, like I said, I feel like he's gonna he's not gonna be running the 74U on LAN. He's gonna go back to the Krig. He's gonna fry. I'm very high on him going into the major, and then obviously he won't be at champs, sadly.
Yeah. The thing for me is I definitely can see the point of Octane being in the top, but I'm also somebody that like so much of how I rank people is winning and stuff that it's so hard for me to put somebody who have the standings in front of me right now who is 8-24 in matches and 90 CDL points, and like that he's been good all year. I mean, he's Octane, he's always going to be good, but I had a hard time. Then like I looked, I'm like bottom 4 teams. I mean, Paris, LAG, London, they don't really have an AR I want to put in there. And I was kind of thinking about it, and I'm like, Clay would probably be here for me if he was playing, but I couldn't honestly. I had the guys I wanted in the top 4 in mind, and like I was thinking, do I want to go Slasher because I love Slasher, one of my favorite players. I think he's good, but he hasn't looked that great lately. I actually went with Crim 6. I I don't think he's been that good this year, and I've said for how long I think he should be more of a faster like flex player. But I mean, Dallas is second place in the standings. They're rounding into form. He's looked better as of late. I think it's also important to like put the intangibles he brings to the team because, like you said, Illy isn't having the best year. And Shotzi's been rounding into form, and I feel like that just has to do with Krim learning the game and being a better leader. And I mean, it's Krim. We know he has a high skill ceiling. And I couldn't figure out who to put 5, so I figured if I don't know who to put 5, might as well put the GOAT.
Sure. So, who you got at number 4 AR?
I have Formal.
Okay, that's exactly who I have as well.
Okay. I think for me, like we talked about a little bit before we did the podcast, it's really hard not to have Formal in your top 5, especially when like there's really no discussion of anybody, the main AR on like Paris, LAG, London, even like being considered. I mean, you can consider Octane, but like I feel like you have to put Formal in the top 5, even if he soars the bottom. I mean, it's Formal. We know he has one of the highest skill ceiling. I feel like there's not much else to say there.
Yeah,
I think you might have a different 3 than me based on like how you seem to be feeling about teams. Who do you have at 3? I think I know who you might have.
So I had a few people crossed them out. I settled on Skies.
Okay.
I ended up looking at the stats. You know, the stats don't lie. Even though they're sitting very middle of the pack. You know, towards the end of the teams that are going to make it to champs. I just feel like he puts the numbers up as much as the team disappoints me from time to time. I feel like Skies definitely deserves to be in the top 5.
Yeah, I have Skies at 3 also. I actually thought you were going to go with Major Main. He's had a pretty good stage. You like Minnesota a lot. He's at a 1.4 on the stage. I thought you might throw him up there. Because, I mean, there's a decent argument based on his recent form that he could be up in that top 5, maybe towards the bottom. I thought you might throw him in there, but I had Skies as well. I mean, Skies in stage 5 group play. The only player with a better KD than him is Simp. In stage 5. So I feel like that's pretty telling as to how he's played. And KD isn't everything, but like it's definitely part of it. And the fact that he's above guys like Cellium and Abezy and Dashy and Insight and Shotzi, like all of our MVP candidates, he's above except for Simp. So like I think it's pretty telling for his recent form. I think we might have the same 2 and 1, but I don't know how you went. Who'd you put at 2?
I put Insight at 2.
Yeah. Insight 2, Arcitys 1.
That's correct.
Yeah, that's what I had too. I feel like ARs, it's pretty obvious. You got Insight, Arcitys. You can make a maybe case for Insight to be 1, but like I feel like it's more of the 3, 4, 5 is the interesting part of the AR. So we can move on to Flex if you want.
All right. So number 5 Flex. I have Gunless, and
I don't, but that's a good pick.
Again, I went with more of a numbers don't lie. So if we look, I don't want to get too bogged down on my number 5 Flex, but Gunless has been up there. He's got a 1.09 on the stage. He has 24.0 hardpoint kills per 10 minutes, which is that's pretty high up there. I mean,
that might be number 1.
Guys like Simp only have 24.8. So
yeah.
And I feel like Gunless has been kind of lost in the wilderness ever since getting benched off of Optic, and he I don't know. I really appreciate him more as a person as well as a player. Like, I mean, just listening to his eavesdrop and stuff really I don't know, just kind of made me realize that these guys aren't just mindless guys that just sit at a computer and play COD all day. They have their own stuff, and Gunless is at points he's been the best player in the game back in the day. So I don't know. I feel like he's having a very unsung good year.
Yep. I agree. I would say for me, I probably have him at 6. He was like my honorable mention, my person I was battling if I wanted to put him 5 or not. But 5, I went with Big Wake, the man, the myth, the legend, Big Wake. Gunless is certainly having a better stage if you look at KD wise. He's at a 1.09 and Big Wake's at a 0.98. I just still feel like, I mean, we've seen Big Wake be like one of the top players in the game at so many points this year. And I feel like right now for Florida, it's do or die. I mean, you look at the standings and you've got Florida is sitting in 8th at 200 points. Minnesota's in 6th with 230. Top 6 is in winners bracket at champs. 7 and 8 are in losers bracket. It's do or die time. They lost to Minnesota. that would have put them only 10 points behind. I just think Big Wake, we know he's got some of the best talent in the league. I think it's kind of do or die time, but I'm going to ride that he's going to do it for at least a little bit. So I decided to go with Big Wake at 5. More of a potential pick in a way, especially since like Gunless's team, like Gunless is disgusting, but his team isn't as good. So I kind of went with more of the potential pick for Big Wake because we know it's there.
Mm-hmm.
I bet you we have the same 4, but we'll see. I have Dashy there.
Oh, I've got Quavo Ken.
Okay, yeah, that's kind of how I figured you'd probably have Kenny or Dashy there. It's kind of what I was thinking. I put Dashy there.
I don't know. I mean, like I mentioned back in the Thieves segment, like, he's been running so many different roles this year. He's had to deal with so many different, like 9 or 10 roster changes, and he's still putting numbers up. And yeah, I mean, not much else to say on Ken. I know he's your favorite player.
Yeah.
He's just super chill guy. I don't know. I mean, he's a guy I'd want on my team running a flex. That's for especially going into some kind of like World War II game. For damn sure.
I'd say I have Dashy at 4. I think it's pretty interchangeable between Dashy and Kenny here. I just think that, to me, Dashy has had points in the year where he has looked lost on the map. Like right after the XM4 was GA'd, Dashy looked lost for a while, and he had a bad stretch. To me, Kenny really hasn't had that bad stretch. And just as like just a little giveaway here, I have Kenny at 3. And I also think, like, when I think of the definition of a flex, Kenny is the guy for me. I mean, there's a reason that in World War II he finished second at champs and won multiple events. In Black Ops 4 he won multiple events and finished second at champs. Like, he is the definition of a guy that can do it all and use any gun. I mean, like, if you're starting a franchise, the obvious picks are like Simp and Abezy, but to me, right behind them at like the third guy you'd want to start a franchise around is Kenny, because he could just do it all. Which is like the definition of what a flex is. Just unfortunately for him, there have been 2 guys that have stood out for me above him, so I got to put him at 3.
Sure. And then for me, it's Dashy. Similar. Just based on recency of form, I feel like Optic is really rounding in. For a long time, I was kind of I was almost buying the Dashy needs to like take a break, or he needs to get benched.
Yeah.
But I mean, and that was coincidentally right when he was running the QBZ after the XM4 was GA'd, and he just couldn't buy a kill. He was just getting pieced all the time. And I was like, we haven't, especially coming off of the Modern Warfare season where he got benched, and then the last time we saw him was on Optic back in Black Ops 4, and it's like, this guy has attitude problems, and it's like, all that stuff started to like kind of like creep into my mind. And but I'm really glad that he's kind of found himself, and still, he's a damn good flex player. That's all I'll say.
Yeah. I think we probably had the same 2 and 1 then. I'm assuming. Who do you have at 2?
I have Cammy and then Cell at 1.
Yep, I have the same thing. Cammy 2, Cellium 1. I'm like, one of my other favorite players in the league over the last couple of years is Cammy. The dude is disgusting. I remember at Black Ops 4 champs, watching him. He was on that team called Units with like Joe and Rated and like a Wee Man, I think, might have been on the team, and Nolson or something. I think that might have been the team. Like, Wee Man and Nolson are kind of like players that have been around in Europe for a while, but like definitely not top by any means. Joe was kind of towards the end of his career. Rated's a pretty good player, but like this team should not have been that good, and they finished like 5th place at that champs. Like, they had a crazy run, and it was because Cammy turned into a superstar, and then he hasn't looked back since then. I mean, Cammy is absolutely disgusting. Like, he is one of the best flex players in the league. There's a reason he's in the top 5 for MVP. Unfortunately for him, though, a guy named Cellium exists, and Cellium is just absurd with the way he moves on the map. He's just got I mean, you want to call it snaking or whatever, but I mean, if there's a guy you need to stay alive in a situation to play your life and get you spawns, like, Cellium might be the best at it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have much else to say. I think the fact that they're both MVP candidates speaks for itself.
Yeah. All right. Subs. This one, to me, I want to save for last because I think it's personally the most interesting, because there are obviously there's 12 ARs, 12 flexes, subs. There's obviously a lot more. I mean, half the league is subs, realistically, so there's a lot more you could go to. And I think I have kind of a hot take for 5. I think there's a world where maybe you have it, but I want you to go first because I think I have kind of a hot take.
Oh gosh, this one was hard for me.
It was yeah.
I had a lot of names and ended up crossing them out based because we kind of agreed to go based on heading into the major and then coincidentally heading into champs. Um, so I'll tell you who I had at 5 and then now who I presently have. So before recency, I had Asim at 5.
Yep.
And I have replaced him with Scump.
Okay. Um, I would say before I switched out my 5, I had Envoy there, and I actually took him out. He's an honorable mention. For me, there's a lot of guys I was going between. I had guys like Asim in mind, but recency. Hydra in mind, but once again, recency kind of killed that. Draza, but he's been a little up and down. Kleenex and Bance, I think you have to throw him as mentions because Toronto's been so good, but has been down a little bit lately. Vivid, but I went with Scump as well. I think
Oh,
this
nice.
past weekend, Scump showed his usual form that we know he always seems to get into in champs. I think there's a world where you could put like Envoy up there. I also think Draza, like I said, the Toronto guys, like all those guys could be up there, but I feel like it's time where it's around champs, Scump, whether he's had the same thing kind of the last couple of years. He's been kind of average through the middle of the year. He's definitely been a serviceable sub, but not top of the line by any means. And then champs comes around, he's Mr. 1.3 again. I feel like we're going to see champs Scump. I mean, he could maybe have a little bit worse of an event, but I feel like we're kind of setting up for him to finally turn it up a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. So that kind of leads into number 4.
I know we don't have the same number 4. I know it. You go
I
first
have
again, because
I have Shotzi at number 4.
okay.
Um, and reasoning, if I could just put his movement as a reason, I would. But he also matches it with the gun skill,
Mm-hmm.
and he's he's maturing into a very he's becoming a lot smarter.
Yep.
He still has a lot of rough edges. That we see the gold standard like Simp not make mistakes, but Shotzi still makes mistakes. I'd like to see him become a better S&D player. Um, but just based on his movement and what he provides for that Empire squad, I feel like he's punching above his weight.
Yeah, I don't have Shotzi at 4. I want to echo almost everything you said. If you could do a tier list based on movement, this guy would be number 2 behind Shotzi. Same thing. He's rough around the edges, makes a lot of boneheaded mistakes, but he's kind of fixing them. Also, I'm a Halo guy. I always have been. That's my first love, and that's the reason I have Neptune at 4. I think that Neptune is rounding into form. He had a rough year. I know there's no way Neptune's in your top 5. I'm assuming you don't have him had a Shotzi.
I do not know.
But I think he's a player that recently we've known all year his skill ceiling is pretty damn high, like one of the highest. Like if he turns it on, we know like just watching his movement is insane shot. Like we know it's up there. He's just been so inconsistent because I didn't think coming into the year he really knew how to play the game that well. But I think he's rounding into form, and I think that's why we've seen guys like Big Wake's numbers drop a little bit. Is because now he finally has a sub in front of him, and Havoc had some better matches too. I think that's why Big Wake's numbers KD wise are down a little bit because he has guys like Neptune in front of him now just slaying out. And I really think this is a do or die weekend for Florida. But knowing them, they could just lose their first match and losers and be out. But I think like this is a do or die weekend once again, like I said, for Big Wake, and Neptune has looked crazy lately. So I wanted to throw him in my top 5, and I knew it'd be a hot take. I knew you weren't gonna have him in there, so I knew we'd have something different if I did it.
Nice. All right. So who do you got at number 3?
That's where I have Shotzi.
Okay. Anything else you want to add on Mr. Shotzi?
I mean, I think he's everything Neptune is, but better. I mean, better movement, maybe make some dumb plays, but also make some plays that it's like this kid's ahead of his time for only being in COD for a year and a half. Number 1 movement I've ever seen. The only guy that rivals him is Karma. Karma was the first guy to do things like Shotzi does, where he'll like do something walking backwards, where he knows where everything is on the map and he avoids every little obstacle. Like Shotzi's movement's absurd, his shot's absurd. He's getting smarter. He's only going to go up on tier list as time goes on. He's the reigning MVP, and he's back in the discussion for MVP for a reason. I mean, the dude's unreal. It's just unfortunate for him that Simp and Abezy exist.
Mm-hmm. For sure. For me, number 3, I took a flyer. I think this guy could hit a really, really high ceiling, but I also think his floor is really low. probably the lowest floor on the sub on my top 5 subs, and that's Kleenex.
Okay, I thought you were gonna say like Envoy or Draza, but I like that.
I if I put Envoy in there, it would have been in place of Scump.
Yeah.
But I'm basically going back to how I saw Kleenex play in stage 2. And oh my gosh, he was just so good, and
Yep.
the slaying especially from him was crazy. He's putting in crazy amounts of damage while also being a very like aggro fast sub player. And yeah, but the part where I could see Toronto and Kleenex just kind of like falling flat on their face. I don't think it's going to happen, but uh, they would probably be one of my first teams to be like, wow, I can't believe Toronto just did that, but they're out, so I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I see where you come from with Kleenex. That's basically the definition of Kleenex, though. Boom or bust. Like, he doesn't seem to have average series. He has bad series, or he has series where he looks like the best player in the world. It's like kind of the story of his career up to this point. And the reason Toronto has been so good is because he has more games where he's really good than where he's really bad. But yeah, I think we probably have the same top 2. I really hope Simp and Abezy are in your top 2. I don't know what order you have them in, though.
I have it in the same order that I think the MVP voting is going to go. I think it's going to be Simp number 1, Abezy number 2, but I could definitely understand anybody flip flopping that.
Yeah, I agree. I think Abezy has more impact, like we said before, but I think right now, Simp is in unreal form, so I have him at 1, but Abezy is in unreal form, just slightly less maybe than Simp. I mean, you can't go wrong with 1 and 2. We know they're 1 and 2. It's just like, it's basically a pick your poison. Whatever day one of them wants to be better, they're both going to drop a 1.2 plus every time. Like, it's just whatever day one of them will be better than the other. There's really no right or wrong way to put them 1 and 2.
Yeah.
All right. So we got our top 5 down. We were honestly overall like pretty similar, besides a couple random outliers, like you having Kleenex and me having Neptune. But overall, everything was like pretty similar. I mean, at this point in the year, it's a lot more established who's, top 5, because we're kind of getting down to it. We've kind of seen a full body of work. But the last little segment we want to get in before we wrap it up, this is gonna be a pretty long episode overall, like an hour and a half ish probably. The last little thing we want to get into is we want to do like a little mini hot take, just a really quick, just say your piece for Major 5. We don't want to do something like if one of us thinks like some crazy team like a Thieves or a Rocker's going to win. We didn't want to say that because we still want to do like an added on like predictions video or something, so we didn't want to give away who we're picking to win, but we wanted to offer like some hot take about a player or a team making a run or something. So I guess you can go first because I feel like we're not going to have the same one, but I don't know. You never know.
All right, my hot take is really I don't know, it's really out there, but I feel like there's going to be a player that tests positive and can't play.
Okay, that's interesting. You went on a complete. I didn't even think about like COVID related fans thing. That's interesting.
I was between saying there's going to be a person that messes it up like Kook did, or that actually tests positive. I think I don't know. I just think somebody might swab positive, and the CDL says, okay, you can't play. So that's going to be like all right, we got to get our sub in or something. So
Superman Dashy from Champs last year or something.
Oh god, that was amazing.
I don't know. I hope that doesn't happen. I hope there's nobody that tests positive for, the event's sake and health wise. So I hope your hot take is wrong. But
I do too.
My hot take, I didn't even think of. That's a good idea. I didn't even think of something like outside of the game. I was too locked into the game that I didn't even think of stuff like that, or like some crazy like a fan's gonna throw something on the stage or something. That would have been an interesting one or something like that. But from what I've heard, the fans are gonna be far away and kind of like separated off, almost caged off or something. But my hot take had to do with Call of Duty. I went with a team that I think is going to make a run, and potentially make a run. I don't know, but I've been kind of high on them the whole podcast. I said I think Florida has the potential to make a run to top 4, somewhat based on the draw they had. I mean, for their sake, it'd be better if they were in London's position because they'd play the winner of Paris, Seattle, which London, that's where you want to be. If you want to make a run, be in the second round of losers and playing London or playing Paris or Seattle, like 2 of the bottom teams. But we've got the Florida Mutineers, who play the winner of Subliners LAG, which if Clay's not playing and Subliners look how they do recently, that's two teams that should be a free win for Florida if they're supposed to be like a top 6 team. And then they probably play LA Thieves because I'm assuming Toronto will probably beat them. So like that's two very winnable matches, which gets them to like top 6 or whatever. And then it comes down to if they can beat the loser of the Toronto Chicago match. So that's my hot take, because I think Florida could find a way, if like Chicago beats Toronto, to upset Toronto and find a way to make themselves in the top 4. And from there on out, who knows? They could be playing somebody like an Empire or Minnesota for top 3, which is another winnable match for them. We saw them beat Empire. But that's my hot take. I think Florida's going to make a big run.
I'd love to see that, especially since my my down bad guy was Colt Havoc. So I would definitely think if that happens, I would definitely look at the score line and see what Havoc's doing, because that would be a pretty good indicator of what they're going to do as a team.
Yeah, I think also personally, really want them or the Thieves to be the 6th seed, because I mean I like Kenny a lot, so I'd like to see Thieves get a 6th seed and get the winners bracket spot at champs. And I also just, there's something about Minnesota, I just feel like they can't. I don't know, something about Minnesota. Maybe I'll have to eat these words if they make a run or something. But something about Minnesota, I just feel like if everybody hits form, I feel like Florida and Thieves are so much better than Minnesota. If everybody's in form, that I want to see like Florida or Thieves get that last spot in the winners bracket, because I mean the top 5 is cemented who the top 5 is. So there's only like one team that can get into winners bracket between Thieves, Minnesota, and Florida. And Minnesota has the inside track. I mean, they're in winners bracket and have the lead, but I think it'll be interesting to see. But I think that's about all we had for today. Did you have anything else you wanted to add?
No, just I guess to close, I wanted to congratulate you and your Milwaukee Bucks on winning the NBA championship. I know we were we were talking about that for a little while, and it's always nice to see somebody that their team come through for them, because it seems like a lot of sports are just heartbreaks, and to finally eclipse and get up to the top, especially with that team and the core players that they have. And I'm kind of biased too, because I went to school in Milwaukee. So yeah, I definitely know my fair share of Bucks fans, and I know that they're all happy right now. And hey, you got the Brewers bringing up the rear end right there. They're that's another discussion, but they're not too bad right now either. So,
and thankfully the one team that's really down bad in Wisconsin, Packers, and I'm not a Packer fan, so that also helps. But yeah, I am so happy about the Bucks. They're probably my favorite sports team overall, and they have been for a number of years. I mean, I was at the Jared Bayless game winner playoff game against the Bulls when we were down 3-0. Then I went back to game 6 when the Bulls beat us by 50 to eliminate us. I was at a couple of the Raptors and both series we played the Raptors, and I've been to go into so many Bucks games. And overall, my sports teams have just been bad for how long? Because the Brewers are just really never good, except for recently they've been all right. The Bucks have really never been good except for the last like 5 years. And my favorite athlete of all time, Andrew Luck, just decided to retire out of nowhere. So overall, my sports teams have been bad. But yeah, I am hyped about the Bucks. But I think that's going to do it for this podcast. Let us know down in the comments what you thought. If you have questions for either of us, I'm sure I'll be answering them through the actual account. Kyle might just answer them through his YouTube account, because that's probably the easier way to do it for now, at least. But I think that's going to do it for this one. Just let us know what you guys thought about this new format. Obviously, this episode is going to be a little long, probably hour and a half, hour 40, as we kind of adjust like a new format. But I think it went pretty well overall. I'm happy with the way it went. So yeah, let us know down in the comments your thoughts on anything this coming week. We'll probably try to get the predictions out for the major. But thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.